What's happening, troops? Welcome back to another video here on the SharpDiv YouTube channel. Now, as you can tell by the title, we're going to be jumping into some comments made by ex-professional football player, now pundit, Jamie O'Hara, and I'm glad to say I'm joined by Sam from FootyAdventures. How you doing, mate?
Yeah, very good. Thank you for having me on. It's a funny topic. It's gone kind of viral over the past few days, these comments from Jamie O'Hara. So yeah, looking forward to chatting to you about his comments. Yeah.
No wonder, mate. No wonder.
Yeah, it's a
But
weird
yeah,
one.
I thought it'd be good to get yourself on because obviously you are an English football fan as well. A Liverpool fan, I believe. Do you want
A
to give
Liverpool
a wee bit
fan.
a background on yourself? Obviously, you have been on the channel before, but if there's somebody new tuning in, tell them a wee bit about yourself, mate.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Liverpool football fan, but I've got a PSV shirt on today. So, just to prove my love of football in general, Liverpool supporter from England, but obviously live up here in Scotland now and just make content around Scottish clubs as well. But would love to, once the world obviously opens up a little bit again, go traveling around the world, make more videos in other countries. But yeah, a huge respect and love for the game, not just in the UK, but all around the world, but specifically more recently, Scotland.
Yeah, mate, I've been loving your content recently. I liked your Rangers video the other day. That one's doing really well as well. I see a lot of Rangers fans are loving
Yeah,
it.
it seems like a good time to upload the Rangers content at the moment. You're doing
Yeah.
obviously so well this season, and I thought it'd be a good chance to get a video up about the early history and then kind of bring it full circle and see if Stevie G can add to the trophies on the front of Ibrox there, which is looking like he probably will. It's a good season for you lot at the moment, so
Well, I'm crossing absolutely everything, mate, for
yeah.
that to happen. But let's jump into the first comment then made by Jamie O'Hara.
Both teams would struggle to stay in the Premier League, in my opinion. I think they'd find it tough.
I'll just quickly give my opinion on that. I think, he started off well here. For Jamie O'Hara, who came out and also said that the Bournemouth job is bigger than the Rangers job for Steven Gerrard, he started all right there, but I don't think it takes, an absolute genius to work out with the financial differences. Rangers and Celtic within the Premier League would struggle. And by struggle, I don't think they would be relegated. I just mean they wouldn't be hitting the same heights as they're hitting domestically here in Scotland as easily, first, second, third. It would take time for them to, break into that top six, top four for sure. So what was your point of view on when he said that?
Well, yeah, all these things are hypothetical, so it's so hard to compare the two because you're working off such different budgets. And I feel like if you just put this Rangers squad and this Celtic squad straight into the Premier League with their obviously Scottish Premiership budgets, they would obviously struggle. Like they're going up against teams who can spend hundreds of millions of pounds. I don't think they'd struggle. I don't think they'd get relegated just due to the size of the teams. But if we're talking in a hypothetical sense, right, and they go into the Premier League and they get Premier League money and get a transfer window, then what's to say that after a year or two, or even one transfer window, they wouldn't become one of the biggest and best teams with the fan base, with the stadiums, with the, everything, the history connected to the clubs. With Premier League money, that would surely make the Scottish teams.
Yeah, that was my exact thinking behind the comment as well. It was a wee bit silly because what are we talking here? Are we saying that if Rangers and Celtic go into the Premier League, they get the £160 million that a team like Fulham would get? Obviously, we'll get onto them. And then I think, is it 100 million you get in parachute payments once you get relegated from the Premier League and such? So the money difference is absolutely huge, which is probably a testament to Rangers and Celtic, the teams that they've kind of built with the amount of money that's in other leagues, especially the English Premier League. So I think Jamie's off to a decent wee start here, but there's red flags coming straight away from me.
That already shows the draw that Scottish football has, that even with such limited cash, that you can even attract players and still build, Europa League quality squads with like limited funds. Like it just shows the power of Rangers and Celtic and kind of the bigger clubs they are. And like this whole term, like, big club and small club thing, it's like quite subjective, I think, sometimes. And to compare Bournemouth and, Rangers and Celtic just because of money and parachute payments, I don't really think they're on the same page in like terms of big club. And I think you obviously have to take into account fan base and stuff, which just brings back to what I said earlier. Like, if they got the cash of the Premier League behind them, they'd surely be straight away up there with United, Liverpool, Arsenal. Chelsea.
No, absolutely, mate. Absolutely. With the right man in charge and the right kind of structure in place, we've seen what it can do with your own club, Liverpool, and actually trusting in the process, which is probably what we're seeing with Steven Gerrard currently. You know, it took a couple of seasons.
And it's not all about money as well.
It's not all about money, no.
Yeah, you see how Liverpool go toe-to-toe with City, who spend hundreds of millions. After the season we won the Champions League, we signed no one in the summer, and then I think Minamino in the January transfer window, and we still went on to win the league that season as well after City strengthened again. So money's not everything, but it obviously goes a long way when done properly.
That is another debate completely, isn't it? And it's the money aspect of football these days and how it's pretty much taken over it. And I remember when Celtic were in the Champions League, for a Rangers fan, we've not been there in a wee while. Hopefully we're back next season, of course. But a lot of their fans started to have the opinion that we've just got no chance. There's just too much of a gap now. And obviously, I didn't quite get it at the time. I still think Celtic and Rangers should be in the Champions League group stages and they should be trying to compete. But they are up against a losing battle. But to go back to the point of view of some Celtic fans, you don't quite grasp how much of a difference there is these days. And it is down to the finances. But I think that's a great point you made in regards to the draw that the Old Firm still have in regards to their name and they can play in European football and such over other teams that might be able to play 3-4 times the wages to certain players.
It's obviously they're two world-renowned kind of footballing. I don't like to use the word brands, but if you talk about the name and the club and the colours and the badge and the, you know, everything linked to Celtic and Rangers, people in every corner of the world will know who Celtic and Rangers are. And if you compare the League of Scotland with a league to another country, kind of who would be similar, I'm not sure who they'd be, but I wouldn't say you have a league the size of Scotland's league in terms of cash and all that kind of stuff and have two as well-known teams, if you know what I mean, all around.
Well, let's jump into the second comment that Jamie O'Hara made.
If Rangers and Celtic got into the Premier League and were given that opportunity, if they stayed in the Premier League within a season or two, that they would be, you know, they'd be top 5, top 6 football club because of the revenue and the size and the stature of the football clubs and the money that they'd bring in and the players that they'd be able to get.
Now, I think with this comment, it's perfectly logical. I think that's a sound comment. He's maybe got a wee flashback there to some of the stick that he got for the Bournemouth comments and thought, I'll try and recover this. So maybe that's one that we don't really need to dive into. But after making progress with his statements, he comes out and he says, I do think Fulham would go and win the Scottish Premiership.
Over the course of a season, are they better than Sheffield United, West Brom and Fulham? I don't know. I think, you know, you're looking at the teams that just outside it, you know, Brighton and Newcastle. I think they'd beat them. I think Fulham would win the league in Scotland.
Totally outlandish in my opinion. I'll be interested to get you. But a quick wee note on Fulham then. They're currently 18th in the English Premier League, played 15 matches, won 2, drew 5 and lost 8, currently get 11 points. Just above them, to give a bit of an insight, is like Brighton, Burnley and Newcastle. So they're kind of in that bracket. In fact, below, in my opinion. What was your thoughts, Sam, when you heard that?
Right, I think this has caused a bit of a stir because of the term that gets bandied about, which I actually hate the term, and it gets used for, you know, the French league when comparing Neymar. I think you want to know, obviously, what I'm talking about, the whole Farmers League thing. And it just brought that up for a lot of people on Twitter and like online and stuff like that. And that rhetoric gets bandied about quite a lot. I think it's a bit harsh. And especially with, like, if you firstly consider what Scottish football has given the world first before, like comparing Rangers and Celtic to Fulham. Rangers were the first British club to reach a European final in the 60s. Celtic were the first British club to win the European Cup as well in the 60s. Like, you've got all the stuff with all the 3 Hampden Parks where Scotland were at the forefront of stadium design and all that kind of stuff. So I think Fulham are only in this conversation because they've got the Premier League money. I think if you look at the squad of Fulham, I don't think it's too much different between Celtic and Rangers. And I think they'd probably do well up here. They've got, you know, Mitrovic, they've got the goalkeeper Areola, who used to be at PSG, and Loftus-Cheek and stuff like that. They've got some good players. And I think up here they would do well. They'd obviously be top 3, I think. Whether they'd beat Celtic and Rangers, I'm not sure to the title. You'd have to see it, and you'd have to factor in, you know, them not having the Premier League money.
Exactly. That's where the hypothetical side that comes in. Yeah. So if Rangers and Celtic are going into the Premier League without the money, obviously it's going to be harder.
Mm-hmm.
But what's going to happen
Fulham
to
spent
Fulham?
hundreds of millions over the past couple of years.
Exactly. If Fulham comes into the Scottish Premiership and they get the same money as Rangers and Celtic, they're struggling. I mean, for me, the Rangers and Celtic squad is a lot better than theirs. I've got to be quite honest. I mean, I look at the lineup in the last game versus Southampton. We've got Areola in goals, Anderson, Adarbayo, Aina, Robinson, Zambo, Anguissa, Need, Cordona, Reid. You can tell there's some players in here that not a lot of us are familiar with. Loftus-Cheek probably being the standout from the last starting 11 there, but he's even a player that's not really reached that level that people expected them. For me, probably Premier League quality in the lower kind of echelons of the Premier League. Yeah. Obviously a good player and would definitely do well in Scotland, but there's a lot of players in there that just don't, in my honest opinion, compare to some of the players that Rangers have got, for example, and even Celtic. You know, James Tavernier, you're looking at him, who's been absolutely on fire this season. And people say, well, he was a championship player. Is the key word there. He's went to new stratospheres this season and the previous seasons. He's now one of the best players in the Europa League factually this season and has been for a couple of years. So, and then you're looking at other players like Ryan Kent. Leeds were interested in him. Alfredo Morelos, for me, is a better player than Mitrovic. Odsonne Edouard is a player that could go down and do really well. And I also wanted to get your opinions, Sam, on what is the actual opinions from English football fans down there. Obviously, it'll be varying. And is it changing with the emergence of like top quality players coming out of the Scottish League again? There's obviously a number of good players right now within Rangers, within Celtic that could go down to the Premier League. One's for my own club that stand out, like Glenn Kamara, James Tavernier, Ryan Kent, Alfredo Morelos, Kemar Roofe, you know, players like this.
Yeah.
So what is the overriding feeling down there these days?
Well, I think that if you look back at like the 90s and stuff, and you look at the players that Rangers had and that Celtic had and stuff, and the top quality that was in Scotland at that time, I think there was a lot more competitiveness up here, which brought a bit more, like it brought a few more viewers in from down south, if you know what I mean. But I think the past 10, 15 years with Rangers being out of the league is probably just completely, I don't want to say killed Scottish football or whatever, but I think in terms of having like more awareness from people in England has obviously dropped off a cliff without having the old firm.
Is it one of the cases where a lot of the fans down there just look at the league table and they just look at who's winning, etc., and they don't really have a full grasp of the full picture? Yeah,
you'd look out for the scores and you might not get the full picture. But that's where I was going to come in. My next point is that it's so competitive now with Rangers looking like they're going to win the league, doing well in Europe. Obviously, Celtic haven't had the best of seasons, but you can now start to see the tide turning, that there's actually going to be a competitive edge back to Scottish football over the next, well, probably forever now, hopefully, barring any other, tragedies that had happened over the past, 10, 15 years. And like, I think that's only going to help Scottish football and help the awareness, not just in England, but all around the world. Like, surely Stevie doing these things up at Rangers, Tav scoring free kicks every week and winning the Europa League, getting through Europa League group, beating teams like Benfica, Standard Liège, that's only going to help.
That's the thing for me as well, Sam. He's talking about this team, Fulham, can come up and they can waltz the Scottish League. They can come up and they can win the Scottish League. Would they compete with Benfica, a team that spent 100 million euros in the summer on quality players that are playing at international level as well?
Yeah, I'm not sure. The only thing on Fulham is that they were I know it's like a few years ago now, but they did get to the Europa League final back in.
But that team was 10 times better than this team. Clint Dempsey and the likes. They were a good team, big Zamora and all that. Now that team Zamora, I can respect.
Yeah, Dempsey, Schwarzer in goal.
Absolutely, mate. To be fair, I kind of feel a wee bit sorry for Fulham as well because they didn't ask to be put into this. You know what I mean? It's all Jamie O'Hara's fault. So we're going in on his football comments.
But I think the overall thing is that you've compared two European giants with a team that are probably only where they are really because of the investment that they've had and parachute payments. They come up and down. They're not a consistent Premier League team anyway. Like they come up, they spent a load of money last time on players like Schürrle and stuff, went straight back down and they're back up again in a couple of years. So they get hundreds of millions and stuff. But I think to compare a team like Fulham with Rangers and Celtic, I think angers the fans up here because obviously there isn't the investment in Scottish football. And I think the fans just kind of want that a little bit more up here, if you know what I mean. But yeah, two huge teams, and I think that I can understand where Scottish people are coming from.
Absolutely. And there's always that sense of, you know, nationalism when somebody says something about the Scottish League. Well, you listen, prick. That's it. But keep it strictly about his football comments, not getting personal on the guy and all that sort of stuff, because I think sometimes it can go over the top with the personal stuff. I like to just talk about the football. Reached out to some of the viewers on Instagram, and some that stood out to me. Jack Bellamy says he obviously only looks at the table as opposed to watching the full 90-minute games. One guy says, Raymond says, who the hell made him the authority in Scottish football? And it's kind of naive, these comments, because for me, I don't think he's watching the games. And the last one that I really liked, well, the last one I'm going to read out, Fulham couldn't win a raffle. So there we go. That's what
I did a poll on Instagram yesterday as well, and I think it was 85% no, Fulham couldn't win the league, compared to like a small slither that was yes, they could. But I think that just could be because I've got more Scottish followers. I don't know. But yeah,
could be, mate.
It's quite a polarising thing. What was that, sorry?
Could be, mate. Could be because of the Scottish followers, aye.
But yeah, but it's also, it could be due to the fact that, you know, England and Scotland are going to be playing each other again in the Euros as well. And it just stirs the like wider part of England, Scotland and all that kind of stuff as well, you know.
You know, Jamie O'Hara's probably just going to come out one day and say, I was just stirring the pot, boys. I've got you all on strings, you know, because surely any logical person isn't going to come out with some of the stuff he's saying for sure. But anyway, that's our take on it.
Yeah.
All the best with the channel in the future.
Thank you, mate. Yeah,
you're doing big things at the moment. You're on course for 15k. You're flying. So all the best with that, mate.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
No problem at all.
Cheers.
That's going to do us for this video. See you again in the next one, and we're out.